Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, watching the blue and green planet grow larger on the main screen. After 18 months in deep space, the massive colony ship finally reached its destination. Behind him, 50,000 colonists slept in cryopods, dreaming of their new home on Kepler 442b. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Commander Vera Kane from her tactical station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel. "There are artificial structures on the planet's surface. Lots of them," Jake frowned. The surveys had shown an empty world, perfect for human settlement. He walked over to Vera's station and looked at the readings. Cities dotted the planet's main continent. Ships moved in orbit above them. "Are you sure these readings are correct?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir. And we're getting an incoming transmission," Vera replied. "It's not in any human language." Dr. Sam Phillips, the ship's science officer, hurried over to them. "Captain, I'm detecting advanced technology down there. This planet is definitely inhabited." Jake's heart sank. 50,000 people had left Earth to start fresh on this world. They had spent most of their money and resources on this journey. Their old colony ship was barely holding together after the long trip through space. "Put the transmission on screen," Jake ordered. The main display changed to show an alien face. The creature had pale blue skin and large black eyes. Strange markings covered its forehead. When it spoke, the ship's computer translated its words. "Human vessel, you are not welcome in this system. I am Admiral Korath of the Zephyrian Empire. This world belongs to us. You will leave immediately." Jake stepped forward. "Admiral Korath, I am Captain Morrison of the human colony ship Liberty. We came here based on galactic surveys that showed this planet was uninhabited. We have 50,000 colonists who need a new home." The alien's expression did not change. "Your surveys mean nothing. The Zephyrian Empire has claimed this system for over 3,000 of your years. We do not recognize human territorial rights in this sector of space. Surely we can work something out," Jake said. "We're not asking for the whole planet, just a small area where our people can live." Admiral Korath's laugh was cold and harsh. "Humans are a primitive species. You have no right to colonize anywhere in Zephyrian space. Your people should have stayed on their home world where they belong." Vera whispered to Jake. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the alien ships. Their weapons are far more advanced than ours." Jake kept his voice steady. "Admiral, our ship is damaged from the journey. Our people will die if we try to travel to another system. Please show mercy." "Mercy is for equals," the alien replied. "You have 72 of your hours to leave this system. If you remain, we will destroy you. This is the only warning you will receive." The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of ship systems. Dr. Phillips broke the quiet. "Captain, I've been analyzing their technology through our sensors. Their ships are incredibly advanced. They have energy shields, weapons that can tear apart our hull, and propulsion systems we can barely understand." Lisa Grant, the colony administrator, joined them on the bridge. "Captain, I've been checking our legal database. The Zephyrians are telling the truth about territorial claims. This entire sector of space falls under their jurisdiction according to galactic law." Jake rubbed his forehead. "What about our colonists? How long can we keep them in cryosleep?" "Not long," Lisa answered. "The cryosystems are failing. We have maybe a week before we have to wake everyone up, and our life support can't handle 50,000 people for more than a few days after that." Ben Torres, the elected civilian leader, had been listening quietly. "Captain, the people down in the colony sections are scared. Word is spreading that we might not be able to land. Some families sold everything they owned to come on this trip. They have nowhere else to go." Jake looked at each person on the bridge. These were good people who had trusted him to lead them to safety. Now they were trapped between death in space and death at the hands of an alien empire. "Show me everything we know about these Zephyrians," Jake said. Dr. Phillips pulled up data on the main screen. "They're an old empire that controls dozens of star systems. They believe in a strict hierarchy based on technological advancement and something called psionic abilities. Species that can't meet their standards are considered inferior." "Have they ever fought humans before?" Vera asked. "No, but they have destroyed other species they deemed unworthy," Sam replied. "According to the galactic database, they wiped out the Altarians 50 years ago for trying to settle in Zephyrian space without permission." Lisa pulled up more legal documents. "Captain, we have no legal standing here. Human law doesn't apply in this sector. If we stay, we're essentially declaring war on their empire." Jake walked to the large window at the front of the bridge. The planet looked so beautiful and peaceful. It was hard to believe that hostile aliens controlled it. "What are our military capabilities?" he asked Vera. "We have mining charges for clearing landing sites, some construction equipment that could be weaponized, and a few hundred security officers with basic weapons. Nothing that could threaten real warships." Ben Torres spoke up again. "Captain, I've been talking to the colonists who are awake. They're willing to fight rather than die slowly in space. These people came here to build new lives. They won't give up without a struggle." Jake turned back to his crew. "We need more information about these aliens. How do they fight? What are their weaknesses? If we're going to have any chance, we need to understand our enemy." "I'll start analyzing their ship movements and communication patterns," Vera said. "I'll study their technology and look for vulnerabilities," Dr. Phillips added. "And I'll prepare our people for what might come," Ben said grimly. Jake nodded. "We have 72 hours to figure out how 50,000 humans in a broken-down colony ship can survive against an alien empire that thinks we don't deserve to exist. Get to work, everyone." As his crew scattered to their tasks, Jake remained at the window staring at the planet that should have been humanity's new home. He had brought these people across space to find a better life. Instead, he might have led them to their deaths. But he knew one thing for certain: humans would not go quietly into the dark. Admiral Korath stood in the command center of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Through the massive windows, he could see his fleet of 30 warships spread across space. Each vessel was a masterpiece of Zephyrian engineering, armed with plasma cannons and protected by energy shields that could stop any known weapon. "Status report," he commanded his second in command. "The human ship remains in orbit around our world," replied Captain Vexcar. "They show no signs of leaving." Korath was not surprised. Lesser species often needed a demonstration of power before they understood their place in the universe. "Prepare for a limited strike. Disable their engines and breach their hull in non-critical areas. Once they see our capabilities, they will surrender." The Admiral had fought many battles across the galaxy. Every time the result was the same. When faced with Zephyrian might, primitive species either fled or submitted. These humans would be no different. Aboard the Liberty, Chief Engineer Pete Walsh crawled through maintenance tunnels, checking every system on the ship. The colony vessel was never meant to be a warship, but Pete had some ideas about changing that. "Amy, hand me that plasma cutter," he called to weapons specialist Amy Clark, who was helping him modify the ship's mining equipment. "Pete, are you sure this will work?" Amy asked, passing him the tool. "We're talking about fighting real warships with construction gear." Pete grinned. "Amy, these aliens think like engineers. Everything neat and organized and following rules. But humans, we're crazy enough to make things work that shouldn't work." In the bridge, Commander Vera Kane studied the alien fleet movements on her screen. The Zephyrian ships moved in perfect formation, every vessel exactly where military doctrine said it should be. Their spacing was precise, their patrol routes predictable. "They fight like they're following a textbook," she told Dr. Phillips. "Look at these patterns. No creativity, no adaptation, just pure military discipline." Dr. Phillips nodded while analyzing intercepted alien communications. "Vera, I'm learning something interesting about their culture. They have a rigid hierarchy based on technological superiority. They literally cannot imagine a less advanced species being a threat." "What do you mean?" "Think about it. They've conquered dozens of worlds by showing up with superior technology. Every species they meet either runs away or gives up. They've never had to deal with anyone who fights back." Captain Jake Morrison joined them. "How much time do we have left?" "About 6 hours before their deadline," Vera replied. "But Captain, I think they're going to attack before then. Their ships are moving into assault positions." Jake activated the ship's communication system. "Attention all colonists. This is your captain speaking. We are about to face an enemy that considers us inferior beings, not worthy of life among the stars. They expect us to run or surrender. They are about to learn that humans don't give up that easily." Throughout the ship, colonists prepared for battle. Civilian pilot Danny Rodriguez checked his small maintenance craft, now loaded with explosive mining charges. Construction worker Maria Santos welded metal plates to create makeshift armor. Farmer Bill Cooper mixed chemicals from the agricultural section to create improvised weapons. These were not soldiers. They were ordinary people with families and dreams. But they had come too far and sacrificed too much to give up now. Admiral Korath received reports from his scouts. The human ship is making modifications to its systems, Captain Vexkar informed him. They appear to be preparing for combat. Korath laughed. Combat with what weapons? They have a civilian vessel with mining equipment. Our shields can stop their most powerful tools. Should we wait for them to finish their preparations? No, we attack now. I want them to see how hopeless their situation is. Then they will beg for mercy and accept whatever terms we choose to offer. The Zephyrian fleet moved forward in perfect formation, energy weapons charged and shields activated. To Korath, this was barely worth calling a battle. More like pest control. Pete Walsh finished his modifications just as alarms started ringing throughout the Liberty. Amy, get to the weapon stations. Tell everyone to remember what we practiced. Pete, we're about to fight an entire alien fleet with mining equipment and spare parts. I know, Pete said with a wild grin. Isn't it great? The first Zephyrian plasma blast struck the Liberty's hull, tearing through the outer sections. Emergency systems activated as atmosphere leaked into space. In the medical bay, Dr. Sarah Kim treated the first casualties while nurses prepared for many more. Damage report, Jake called out as the ship shook from another hit. Main engines are offline, Vera responded. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. They're trying to cripple us without destroying the ship. Dr. Phillips monitored alien communications. Captain, they're ordering us to surrender. Admiral Korath is broadcasting that resistance is futile and we should prepare to be boarded. Jake smiled grimly. Tell the good Admiral that humans have a saying. We prefer to die on our feet rather than live on our knees. Admiral Korath was puzzled when he received the human response. Die on their feet? What did that even mean? In Zephyrian culture, surrender to a superior force was logical and honorable. Fighting a hopeless battle was simply wasteful stupidity. They refused to surrender, Captain Vexkar reported. Then we will take their ship by force and save who we can, Korath replied. Prepare boarding parties. These primitives need to learn their lesson the hard way. That was when the Liberty's real counterattack began. Small maintenance pods swarmed out of the colony ship's docking bays, moving in chaotic patterns that confused the Zephyrian targeting computers. The pods were too small and erratic for the alien weapons to track effectively. Danny Rodriguez piloted his pod straight at a Zephyrian cruiser, dodging plasma fire while transmitting human music at maximum volume. The sound baffled the telepathic aliens who were used to the ordered thoughts of civilized species. What is this noise? Demanded one of the Zephyrian captains. The humans had turned their communication array into a weapon, broadcasting electromagnetic signals that interfered with the aliens' sophisticated sensors. Suddenly, the Zephyrians found their targeting systems malfunctioning. Pete Walsh's modified mining charges struck the lead Zephyrian ship just as its shields flickered from the signal interference. The explosion tore through the vessel's hull, causing the first Zephyrian casualties of the battle. Admiral Korath stared in shock as his ship's damage reports came in. How is this possible? They're using primitive tools. Sir, their tactics make no sense, reported his tactical officer. They're not following any known combat doctrine. Our computers cannot predict their next moves. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Korath felt something he had never experienced before in battle. Uncertainty. These humans were not behaving like any enemy he had ever faced. They fought with desperate creativity instead of logical strategy. And somehow, impossibly, they were winning. The battle had been raging for 2 hours. Admiral Korath watched in growing horror as his perfectly ordered fleet fell into chaos. 3 of his ships were already destroyed, and more were taking damage from impossible attacks. Sir, the humans are using their garbage disposal system as a weapon, reported Captain Vexkar, his voice filled with disbelief. They're launching compressed waste at our ships at high velocity. Korath could not understand what he was seeing. Garbage? They're fighting us with garbage? On the Liberty's bridge, Captain Jake Morrison coordinated the desperate defense. His people were turning every piece of equipment into a weapon. Construction drones carried welding torches that could cut through alien hull plating. Agricultural sprayers spread corrosive chemicals that ate through enemy sensors. Danny's making another run, Vera Kane reported as she tracked the small maintenance craft on her screen. Danny Rodriguez had become a legend in the last 2 hours. His tiny ship had destroyed 2 alien fighters and damaged a cruiser. He flew like a man possessed, dodging between the massive enemy vessels, while broadcasting human war songs that drove the telepathic aliens crazy with their chaotic emotions. "This is Danny to all human ships," his voice crackled over the radio. "I'm going for the big one. If I don't make it back, tell my kids their old man went out fighting." His maintenance pod, now loaded with every explosive charge Pete Walsh could fit inside, streaked toward Admiral Korath's flagship. Plasma fire lit up space around him, but Danny kept flying, weaving between the energy beams like he was racing through an asteroid field. In the engineering section, Pete Walsh was putting the finishing touches on his greatest creation. "Amy, is the communications array ready?" "Ready as it'll ever be," Amy Clark replied, sweat dripping down her face. "But Pete, if this doesn't work, we're all dead." "If this doesn't work, we were dead anyway," Pete said. "At least this way we go down swinging." Dr. Sam Phillips had been working frantically in the science lab, turning the ship's biological samples into weapons. The Zephyrians had advanced air filtration systems that kept their ship environments perfectly clean. Those same systems became death traps when Earth bacteria and viruses were introduced. "Captain, I'm ready to deploy the biological agents," Sam announced. "But we need to get them inside the enemy ships." "Leave that to me," said Danny Rodriguez as his pod approached the Zephyrian flagship. Instead of ramming it, he attached his craft to the ship's hull and began cutting through with a plasma torch. Admiral Korath felt his ship shudder. "What's happening now?" "Sir, one of their small craft has attached to our hull. The pilot is cutting through our armor. Send security teams to stop him." But it was too late. Danny had already punched through the hull and released Dr. Phillips's biological weapons into the ship's air system. Within minutes, Zephyrian crew members throughout the flagship began falling ill as their bodies encountered microorganisms they had no immunity against. Meanwhile, Pete Walsh activated his master plan. The Liberty's entire communications array began broadcasting at maximum power, sending out electromagnetic pulses on frequencies that interfered with Zephyrian shield generators. "It's working," Vera shouted as she watched enemy shields flicker and fail across the alien fleet. "Their defenses are down." With the shields gone, human weapons could finally hurt the alien ships. Mining charges that had bounced harmlessly off energy barriers now tore through enemy hulls. Construction equipment designed to build colonies became tools of destruction. Maria Santos led a team of welders in small craft, cutting through the hulls of disabled alien ships. Bill Cooper's improvised chemical weapons ate through enemy armor like acid. Even the children helped, operating communication jammers that confused alien targeting systems. Admiral Korath staggered on his bridge as the ship's atmosphere filled with alien germs. Half his crew was sick or dead. His shields were gone, his weapons were malfunctioning, and his perfectly ordered fleet was being torn apart by primitive humans using mining tools and construction equipment. "Sir, we're receiving damage reports from the entire fleet," Captain Vexcar gasped between coughing fits. 12 ships destroyed, 8 more heavily damaged. "The humans are. They're actually winning." Korath could not believe it. His species had conquered half the galaxy with superior technology and military discipline. How are these primitive creatures defeating him with garbage and spare parts? Dr. Phillips provided the answer as he monitored alien communications. "Captain, I'm intercepting their tactical discussions. They keep asking their computers what to do, but their battle programs don't have responses for our tactics. We're doing things that make no sense according to their military doctrine." Jake Morrison understood. The Zephyrians were like a chess player who had memorized every move in the book, but had never learned to think creatively. When faced with opponents who broke all the rules, they couldn't adapt. "All human ships, this is the captain," Jake broadcast. "Keep hitting them with everything we've got. They can't predict what we'll do next because we're making it up as we go along." The battle reached its climax when Danny Rodriguez made his final attack run. His maintenance pod, barely holding together after hours of combat, streaked toward the Zephyrian flagship one last time. He had used up all his explosives, but he still had one weapon left. Himself. "Tell everyone I said goodbye," Danny transmitted as he aimed his ship at the alien bridge. The impact destroyed both the maintenance pod and the front section of the flagship. Admiral Korath, injured but alive, watched his command center burn around him. His fleet was in full retreat, running from an enemy he had considered beneath his notice just hours before. Pete Walsh's voice echoed through the Liberty's corridors. "Attention all hands. The alien fleet is withdrawing. We did it, people. We actually did it. Cheers erupted throughout the colony ship. Families hugged each other, tears streaming down their faces. They had faced an enemy with superior technology and won through determination and human creativity. But Captain Morrison knew this was just the beginning. "Vera, what's the status of the retreating alien ships?" "About half their fleet is still intact," she reported. "They're limping away, but they're not destroyed." Dr. Phillips looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm intercepting their emergency transmissions. They're calling for reinforcements from the Zephyrian home fleet. Admiral Korath is reporting our capabilities to his superiors." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. They had won this battle by surprising an overconfident enemy. But next time, the aliens would be ready for human tactics. Next time, they would bring enough ships to overwhelm any defense. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "Based on their transmission delays, probably 6 months before a larger fleet arrives," Sam replied. Lisa Grant joined them on the bridge, her face grim despite their victory. "Captain, we can't run. Our ship is too damaged for another long journey, and our people need to start building homes on the planet." Ben Torres nodded in agreement. "The colonists are willing to stay and fight. They've seen what humans can accomplish when we work together. This is our world now, and we're not giving it up." Jake looked out at the planet that had become humanity's first real home among the stars. They had won the right to stay, but the price would be eternal vigilance. The Zephyrian Empire would not forgive this defeat, and humanity had just declared war on one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. "Then we'd better get ready," Jake said quietly, "because when they come back, they'll bring everything they've got." 6 months had passed since the battle in orbit. The human colony on Kepler 442b had grown from a desperate refugee camp into a fortress city. Where once there had been empty plains, now stood factories, defensive structures, and homes for 50,000 determined settlers. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the colony's main street, observing the changes. Children who had arrived as scared refugees now played war games with toy spaceships. Adults who had been farmers and office workers on Earth now carried weapons and worked in munitions factories. "Captain, we just received a long-range sensor alert," Commander Vera Kane called out as she approached him. "You need to see this." They hurried to the newly built command center, where Dr. Sam Phillips was staring at his instruments with a worried expression. "Show me," Jake said. The main display lit up with sensor readings from deep space. What they saw made everyone in the room go quiet. A massive fleet was approaching their system. Not 30 ships like Admiral Korath had brought, but over 1,000 vessels of various sizes. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3, Sam replied. "Captain, I've never seen anything like this. Some of those ships are the size of small moons." Lisa Grant, now the colony's defense administrator, pulled up tactical analyses on her tablet. "Our preparations won't be enough against a fleet that size. We've built defensive weapons, trained civilian militias, and fortified key positions, but 1,000 ships? What about evacuation?" asked Ben Torres, who had become the colony's civilian leader. Jake shook his head. "The Liberty is beyond repair. We stripped most of her systems to build the colony defenses, and even if we could fix her, where would we go? The Zephyrians control this entire sector of space." Chief Engineer Pete Walsh joined the discussion. "Captain, I've been studying the alien technology we salvaged from the first battle. Their ships are powerful, but they have weaknesses. The problem is scale. I can't build enough weapons to fight 1,000 ships." Amy Clark, now head of colonial security, spread tactical maps across the table. "We've turned the entire colony into a fortress. Every building has defensive positions. The factories can produce ammunition around the clock. Our people are trained and ready to fight." Dr. Phillips highlighted intelligence reports on his screen. "I've been monitoring Zephyrian communications. The Emperor himself is coming to oversee our destruction. Emperor Vexathai wants to make an example of humanity that will prevent other species from rebelling against the Empire." Jake studied the reports. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled through fear and superior technology for thousands of years. No species had ever successfully resisted their might. Until now. "What about our allies?" Ben asked. "Surely other oppressed species will help us." "I'm afraid not," Sam replied. "Most species are too terrified of the Zephyrians to openly rebel, though I am picking up increased resistance activity on several worlds. Word of our victory has spread, and it's giving others hope. Vera pulled up communication logs. Captain, we've been receiving secret messages from resistance groups across the galaxy. They're calling us heroes. Some are even trying to send supplies and volunteers, but the Zephyrian blockades make it impossible. Jake felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. 50,000 colonists depended on him for protection. But more than that, humanity's future among the stars hung in the balance. If they failed here, humans would never be allowed to leave Earth again. Show me our defensive preparations, he said. Amy led them to the colony's war room, where holographic displays showed their fortifications. The city was surrounded by energy barriers powered by alien technology they had reverse-engineered. Weapon platforms built from salvaged Zephyrian ships protected key approaches. Underground tunnels connected every major building, allowing defenders to move safely during bombardments. We've trained 20,000 colonists in combat operations, Amy reported. Everyone from teenagers to grandparents knows how to fight. The factories are producing weapons, ammunition, and equipment around the clock. Pete showed them his latest inventions. I've been working on new weapons based on alien technology. These plasma cannons can punch through Zephyrian shields. These mines use their own shield generators against them. And this, he pointed to a strange device, can overload their ship computers with feedback loops. But even with all their preparations, everyone knew the math. 1,000 enemy ships against one fortified colony. The humans might inflict heavy casualties, but the outcome seemed inevitable. Dr. Phillips made a disturbing discovery while analyzing intercepted communications. Captain, the Zephyrian databases contain records of dozens of extinct species. Every time a primitive race tried to resist the Empire, they were completely wiped out. Not just defeated, but eliminated from existence. They're not just coming to conquer us, Lisa realized. They're coming to make sure humanity never becomes a threat to anyone else. Jake gathered his senior staff for a final planning session. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2 weeks we face the largest military force in known history. They have superior technology, overwhelming numbers, and 3,000 years of military experience. They consider us primitive animals that need to be put down. He looked around the room at the faces of people who had become his family over the past months. But they're making the same mistake Admiral Korath made. They think they understand us. They don't. Vera leaned forward. What do you mean, Captain? They expect us to fight like they do. Organized, predictable, following military doctrine. But we're not a military force. We're colonists fighting for our homes. We're going to fight like humans, not like soldiers. Pete grinned. Dirty, creative, and completely unpredictable. Exactly. They can bring 1,000 ships, but they still have to deal with the fact that humans don't give up. Ever. Ben Torres spoke for the civilian population. Captain, our people are ready. They know what this battle means. If we lose here, humanity's dreams of living among the stars die with us. But if we win, we prove that no empire, no matter how powerful, can crush the human spirit, Jake finished. We show the galaxy that freedom is worth fighting for, even against impossible odds. Amy checked her tactical displays. All defensive positions are manned and ready. Weapons are charged and ammunition stockpiles are full. The civilian shelters are prepared for extended bombardment. Dr. Phillips continued monitoring long-range sensors. Captain, the enemy fleet has begun final approach maneuvers. Emperor Vexatai is broadcasting ultimatums to the entire galaxy, promising to show what happens to species that defy Zephyrian authority. Jake walked to the window overlooking the colony. Children played in the streets while their parents worked in the factories. Families shared meals together, knowing these might be their last peaceful moments. These people had come across space to build new lives, and now they were prepared to die defending those lives. All stations, this is Captain Morrison, he announced over the colony's communication system. The enemy approaches with overwhelming force, expecting us to surrender or die quickly. They're about to learn that humans have never been very good at doing what others expect. Throughout the colony, people stopped their work to listen. In 2 weeks, we face the test of our species. Not just our survival, but our right to exist as equals in this galaxy. Win or lose, we will show them what humanity is made of. We will fight with everything we have, and we will make them pay for every inch of our world. The colonists cheered, their voices carrying across the settlement. Children raised toy weapons in salute while adults checked their real ones. This was no longer just about one colony on one planet. This was about humanity's place in the universe. As the enemy fleet drew closer, The humans made their final preparations, knowing they were about to face the greatest challenge in their species' history. Emperor Vexthai stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, the Cosmic Dominion, watching the human colony grow larger on the main screen. Behind him stretched the greatest military force ever assembled in Zephyrian history, 1,000 warships carrying the Empire's finest warriors. "Your Imperial Majesty," reported Fleet Admiral Korath, still bearing scars from his previous defeat. "The human settlement shows extensive fortifications. They appear to be preparing for extended resistance." The Emperor's laugh was cold and cruel. "Let them prepare. I want the entire galaxy to see what happens to primitive species that dare challenge Zephyrian supremacy. Today we end humanity's brief and pathetic attempt at space colonization." On the planet below, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the colony's command center, surrounded by his staff. The massive enemy fleet filled the sky above them, blotting out the stars. "Final status report," Jake ordered. Commander Vera Kane checked her tactical displays. "All defensive positions are manned and ready. Weapon platforms online. Shield generators at full power." Chief Engineer Pete Walsh grinned despite the overwhelming odds. "Captain, I've got surprises ready for these aliens that they won't see coming. Remember, they expect us to fight fair." Dr. Sam Phillips monitored enemy communications. "Captain, they're broadcasting surrender demands. Emperor Vexthai is giving us 1 hour to lay down our weapons and submit to Zephyrian authority. What's our response?" asked Ben Torres. Jake activated the colony's main transmitter. "Emperor Vexthai, this is Captain Morrison. We appreciate your offer, but humans have never been very good at submitting to bullies. If you want our world, come and take it." The Emperor's face darkened with rage when he received the human response. "Very well. Begin the bombardment. I want that colony reduced to ashes within the hour." The sky erupted in fire as 1,000 Zephyrian ships opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams and plasma bolts rained down on the human settlement like a deadly storm. The colony's shields flared and sparked under the massive assault, but the humans had learned from their previous battle. Instead of one large shield protecting the entire colony, they had built dozens of smaller barriers that could be individually controlled. When one section failed, others remained active. "Shields holding at 60%, Vera reported as explosions rocked the command center. "Sector 7 is taking heavy damage, but the others are stable." Pete's voice crackled over the communicator from his position in the main weapon control room. "Jake, it's time to show these aliens what human engineering can do." Activating the feedback pulse. Hidden throughout the colony were devices that Pete had built using salvaged Zephyrian technology. As the enemy ships fired their weapons, these devices absorbed the energy, signatures, and reflected them back in chaotic patterns that overloaded alien targeting computers. Emperor Vexthai watched in confusion as his fleet's accuracy suddenly dropped. "What's happening to our weapon systems?" "Sir, our targeting computers are malfunctioning," reported a technician. "The humans are somehow interfering with our fire control." "Impossible. Their technology is primitive." But the humans were just getting started. Amy Clark activated the colony's hidden weapon batteries, built into buildings and concealed underground. These weren't conventional weapons, but tools of construction turned into instruments of destruction. Industrial mining lasers designed to cut through rock sliced through alien ship hulls. Magnetic crane systems grabbed enemy fighters and smashed them together. Even the colony's garbage processing plant became a weapon, launching compressed waste at high velocity into enemy formations. Dr. Phillips had prepared his greatest contribution to the battle. Using samples from hundreds of different worlds, he had created biological weapons specifically designed to target Zephyrian physiology. These weren't diseases, but engineered organisms that ate through their ship hulls and life support systems. "Biological agents deployed," Sam announced as specially modified human fighters launched, clouds of microscopic attackers toward the enemy. Fleet Emperor Vexthai felt his flagship shudder as unknown organisms began eating through the hull. Emergency alarms blared throughout his ship as similar attacks struck vessels across his fleet. "Sir, we're losing ships to some kind of biological attack," Admiral Korath reported. "The organisms are dissolving our hull plating and destroying our air recycling systems." "How is this possible?" "We have the most advanced defenses in the galaxy." The answer came from an unexpected source. Ben Torres had organized the civilian population into a coordinated resistance network. Teachers operated communication jammers that confused enemy sensors. Shopkeepers fired improvised weapons from rooftops. Even children helped by spotting enemy movements and relaying information. The Zephyrians had prepared to fight a military force. They had no experience dealing with an entire population that refused to surrender. Danny Rodriguez had died in the previous battle, but his example inspired others. Civilian pilots flew maintenance craft loaded with explosives directly into enemy ships, singing human songs and broadcasting messages of defiance that drove the telepathic aliens to distraction. Maria Santos led welding teams that emerged from hidden tunnels to attack grounded enemy craft. Bill Cooper's agricultural background helped him create chemical weapons from fertilizer and cleaning supplies. Every human colonist became a warrior defending their home. Emperor Vexhai found himself fighting not just an army, but an entire civilization that refused to accept defeat. His advanced technology meant nothing against opponents who fought with desperate creativity and absolute determination. "Sir, we've lost over 200 ships," Admiral Korath reported, his voice shaking. "The humans are using tactics our computers cannot predict or counter." The battle reached its climax when Pete Walsh activated his master creation. He had spent months building a massive electromagnetic pulse generator powered by the colony's main reactor. When activated, it sent waves of energy that overloaded every Zephyrian electronic system within range. Across the enemy fleet, ships went dark as their computers crashed and their weapons failed. The mighty Zephyrian war machine, dependent on advanced technology, became helpless when that technology turned against them. Jake Morrison seized the moment. "All human forces, this is the captain. The enemy is vulnerable. Hit them with everything we have." The colonists responded with a coordinated assault that would have made professional military forces proud. Every weapon, every tool, every piece of equipment became part of the attack. The sky filled with human craft of every description, from fighter ships to construction vehicles, all converging on the disabled alien fleet. Emperor Vexthai watched his invincible armada torn apart by humans using mining equipment and farm tools. His flagship, the pride of the Zephyrian military, was being boarded by welders and mechanics who cut through his defenses like they were repairing broken pipes. "This is impossible," he whispered, as his bridge filled with smoke and emergency lights flashed. "We are the masters of the galaxy. How can primitives defeat us?" Dr. Phillips provided the answer as he monitored the Emperor's communications from the colony command center. "Captain, I'm intercepting their internal discussions. They keep saying we're not fighting according to civilized rules of warfare. They literally cannot understand how we can be winning." Jake smiled grimly as he watched the battle unfold on his screens. "That's because they never learned the most important rule of human warfare. There are no rules when you're fighting for survival." The end came when a group of human children, armed with tools from their school workshop, managed to reach the Emperor's personal quarters. Vexthai, master of a galactic empire, found himself facing a 12-year-old girl with a plasma cutter and the determination to protect her new home. "Surrender," young Katie Walsh demanded, Pete's daughter showing the same engineering genius as her father. "Your ship is dead and your fleet is defeated." Emperor Vexthai looked into the child's eyes and saw something that chilled him to his core. Absolute fearlessness. This human child, armed with a simple tool, was more terrifying than any warrior he had ever faced because she truly believed she could win. The Emperor's surrender was broadcast across the galaxy. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, which had conquered dozens of worlds and destroyed entire species, had been defeated by human colonists fighting with construction equipment and farming tools. Jake Morrison stood in the ruins of his command center, surrounded by his staff and looking out at a sky filled with burning alien ships. The cost had been enormous. Half the colony lay in ruins and thousands of humans had died defending their new home. But they had won. "Captain, we're receiving communications from across the galaxy," Dr. Phillips reported. "Resistance movements on dozens of worlds are declaring independence from Zephyrian rule. The Empire is collapsing." Vera looked up from her tactical display. "Sir, the surviving Zephyrian ships are requesting permission to retreat. What are your orders?" Jake thought for a moment, then activated the colony's main transmitter. "To all Zephyrian forces, this is Captain Morrison. You came here believing humans were too primitive to deserve a place among the stars. You were wrong. Return to your worlds and tell them what you learned here." Humans are not your subjects, your enemies, or your inferiors. We are your equals,